All right. Hello, everybody. Cam K, welcome in. Bit of a different look for us now. Finally got a background that put a lot of effort into. Probably estimate the total time it took to put this whole thing together. Probably about 14 hours total put together. Thanks to the amazing talents of photographers within the NASCAR Pinty Series garage. Stephen Ellis, Tim Gerald, Raymond Vigneault, Eric Susi, Ashley McCubbin, Al Harris. We've got a beautiful looking layout. A bit of a change, actually, in what it's looked like. This is something that I've hoped to be able to put together for a while, and just not knowing exactly how to go about it. So we hope we've got some fresh takes. We've got some fresh looks, trying to make things a little bit better here on the show, improve on what we have been, and showcase and highlight the NASCAR Pinty Series as we get ready for the 2023 season officially. We're getting real close to May 13th. The season opener at Sunset Speedway. We'll talk about Sunset Speedway tonight. They've got lots of good stuff happening at that racetrack on social media. Not only that, they've got some rules implemented that I'm very curious to see what the people watching the show tonight have to say, because it could very well affect the NASCAR Pinty Series in the future. As plenty of things that we can talk about on that front. You'll notice the schedule rotating to the right of the screen that showcases our series schedule for this season. On the bottom, you will see drivers from the series. I don't have everybody. It's a little hard to get some pictures of people and some of their cars. Unfortunately, Jamie Krizik, one of them, Michael Gowdy, another, a couple other names that aren't on the bottom yet, but I'm going to try and get all 51 that were a part of the NASCAR Pinty Series in 2022. That's the crazy thing we talk about. 51 different drivers took part in the season last year. Even though Jacques Villeneuve didn't start the race, technically he's still on that list. So a very solid 2022. And we're going to look at what potentially could be on our radar for 2023 with the roster. We did have a driver announcement today, one that wasn't entirely surprising. I think a lot of us expected to see him back, but absolutely, let's be excited for this, because the more announcements that we get, it does mean the closer we get. Now, I've got my good buddy Tim Gerald here telling me that he does have some extra photos here that he can help out with getting Michael Gowdy on the bottom of the screen here. So excellent stuff. And I mean, that's what you love. You got to love about this series is that the talented photographers, not obviously I didn't mention Matt Manor, who's got one of the best pictures that we've used for our thumbnail of the championship trophy. And that's the ultimate prize that all of our competitors go for. But one of the things I absolutely love about the series is how amazing some of these photos are. Some of the videos that are taken, lots of great photos across the entirety. Matt Myler photo also is featured. I think Tim's got the majority. Some of NASCAR.ca driver photos that we have on there. But man, there are some great photographers, great people within the series. So we're very excited to see them and continuing to support. Tim is one of those guys that if you go and see his stuff, man, if you can, go to speedwaymedia.com. And I recommend this for any fan of racing. It doesn't have to be specific to Pinty's, but speedwaymedia.com, and look at the photography section and some of the photos that are coming out in that section specifically. If you go to the other racing divisions, that's where you're going to find NASCAR Pinty Series content from Tim. Patrick Suchan is also on there as well. Some great photos from Oshweek Speedway. Really nice photos, actually, including one of my favorite photos in all of racing last year, which is Aaron Turkey's car coming out through the dirt into the Oshweek sun. What an amazing photo. Now it was either Tim or Dale Calnan that got it. Hopefully it was one of those two that I got it right. But either way, the photos, if you look back at some of the ones from Oshweek Speedway, the lighting is absolutely perfect. Derek Smith, obviously another guy on Race Pulse. Amazing photos. His are a little bit different. He doesn't have them available essentially for people to view in high definition, but or high quality. But again, another guy who we see that guy. We see Derek everywhere, and he's a well-known guy across the Canadian motorsport scene. A lot of people don't even know his name. I didn't know his name. So it is Tim's photo. That's Aaron in the dirt. One of my favorite photos. It's when we talk about stuff that just gives you chills, it's one of those photos, man. I'm serious about this, in that there's only a handful of photos that really kind of make you go, holy crap, like that's Like, that's crazy looking, right? And this is one of those. I'm actually going to look up and find it right now, because one of the things that I was really blessed being able to do was look at these photos while trying to find driver photos for the bottom banners. And when you're lucky enough to Lion King. See, yeah, I was wondering, Gary, if there was a nickname for Eric or for Derek, because I shamefully, a lot of us just know him as the guy with long hair and long beard. I mean, he was. That's just kind of what we knew him at. Now I actually know his name, so I'm happy that we do, because you see him everywhere. It's like it's very similar to if you go to an APC race and you see Cale Thompson from Thompson Photography. Some of the, like, again, like Ashley McCubbin from the from Short Track Musings, and Kelly Costigan. Some of their photos are just fantastic. And I mean, I think I don't know if it's actually up here. It doesn't look like it is. But that photo of Aaron Turkey's car coming out into the Oshwegan dirt and in the light, it is a good photo. He is, though, Tim, like, I don't know how the guy does it, honestly, because, yeah, you're right. It says Derek's Little Liver. He'll shoot an afternoon at one track and night at another on the same day. I don't even know how he has the time sometimes. I mean, like Motorama, for example, I didn't even see him until we were taking the OSS cars up the outside to be loaded up from the end of the show. And like, what an amazing guy. I mean, that, you gotta love people that put forth the effort and really do a lot of wonders for not just the Pinty series, but racing as a whole, because it is something that we need. We need photographers. We need people that'll do podcasters like Riegser. We need people that will do that stuff. This series is still, I wouldn't say that it's not an unknown. It's definitely a lot more known than it was, but I think if we were going to go across the entirety of Canada, I would say that it is still a pretty unknown thing, even in Ontario, whereas I don't know people really know, hey, NASCAR is in Canada and we have our own Canadian series. Now, I really do think that we get more brand recognition, something like Fresh Stone Brands, which is recently launched. If they were to come into the Pinty series, they're showing commercials now on TSN, so people know what that product is. They know the Victoria Gate product. Victoria Gate, Tiffany Gate was one of those names. But for sure, there's a lot of positives to having these photos out there, because people go out and then fans like us will go and post them, and then people go, oh, that's a badass looking car. And it is. I mean, it really is. There's a lot of things I think that maybe they don't get the reputation and they're not as well known. But again, a lot of the photos that we're seeing, you know, Matt Manor and Kelly Costigan, Ashley McCubbin, Tim Gerald, Stephen Ellis, Derek Smith, Raymond Vigneault, Eric Susie. It's countless names. Our buddy Serge from Quebec as well. I mean, he is also another one that goes out there and takes photos. And Matt Myler is somewhat new to that. He's, because of Eastbound Park is new. And some of his photos and the video from Reedinson Media, like, this is what we want to see. And now you get podcasters that are starting to cover it. Wide World of Motorsports covering the series. Stickers and Scuffs covering it. We're doing it here on G-Force TV. Not only that, you have Riegser out in the Atlantic provinces who's putting out YouTube videos that are getting hundreds and thousands of views. This is what is so beneficial. It is an importance, an absolute importance. And I knew Tim was going to come through for me on this. Look at this, guys. Look at this beautiful. Look at that. Like, just the absolute best. The absolute. I was just trying to see if I could move it over a little bit. No. I mean, I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, look at this. I'm just going to make it bigger just so you can see. Like, oh, one of my favorite photos of the entire 2022 season right there. Just move it over just a tad. You can see just like the light hitting the dirt. Just the shine. Oh, what a great photo. Not just sucking up here because Tim's in the chat, but holy moly, one of my favorite photos. Such a badass looking photo too, with the Nitro 54 on the side of the car. You can see the number of the 99. This was actually one of my favorite paint schemes last year. Really liked the Nitro 54 car. Yellow isn't normally a favorite of mine on race cars, but with the black and the white, really did look really nice. And I mean, for all of the races that we saw last year, I would say Oshweekend probably had the best photos. And it has to do more or less with the lighting. A lot of tracks that don't have the best lighting, it does seem to make it a lot harder. I think Eastbound Park had some really good photos, really good video. Delaware had some really good video and photos. I think, obviously, GP3R. I mean, that's always a given. They always have great photos out there. Ones I really don't seem to see as much are photos at iCar and out west, and I'm really hoping that we can see some more photos from out west. Whether we have I don't know any Western photographers, so I think that's probably part of it. I'd love to see some more. Obviously, you got guys like Raymond, who cover a good chunk of the Dumoulin competition photos, and it's different when you're doing photography for one team aside from the entire series, right? So but I mean, just blown away with some of the work that people put in to this is promotion. This is what it is. I mean, this is day in and day out. Taking photos is going to get a lot of attention. Videos, photos get attention. That's what happens. Interviews, hit and miss, I'd say. I mean, what we've seen so far for ourselves in SNS is it varies, right? It depends on the guest, and depends on how much stuff is also promoted on that side of things. We've had guests on our show that do really well that aren't Pinty's drivers, right? So it goes both ways, really. And we, I think what's definitely happening though is we're getting some great footage for these races, because we've got people that are known now. I love some of the guys that we've got in this series. Not to be mean, but Not Sure at iCar. Lots of good places for shots on a good. That's what I mean though, Jim. Like, that's part of the. I think the problem there is there might not be good places to shoot, specifically at a flat track like that. Like, CTMP always has amazing shots, right? Like, Tim, I don't know how many steps like Tim puts in at CTMP, but it's got to be a ton, right? Like, Reed Instant Media, perfect example. One of the examples that we're talking about, having people that come in and they're bringing content now to the fans, and it's not just fans that are familiar with the series. It's about bringing it overall to racing fans. One of the guys that I really am excited about is Riegser, and I'm not trying to butter up anybody here, but one of the things that I'm really excited about is seeing videos that he's putting out there that are getting hundreds and thousands of views. That is what looks really good. That is something that we need. And the more, I mean, people might say, like, YouTubers, YouTubers are actually a really, really important thing. Not just like YouTubers, but people that are big on social media. A perfect example, I'll take Olivia Whistle. She posts stuff about the NASCAR Pinty series. She's done journalism. She's a journalism student. She's done videos, she's taken pictures, she's done articles. That's somebody who the series can be attached to because they have a following and they're doing a great thing. I think having a presence out in Atlanta, Canada, by having somebody like Razor, by Regency Media, having Matt Myler taking this content is a good thing. Now, again, I don't know people out west. I hope we can get somebody that will, like from the western provinces, that would do it at Edmonton and Saskatoon, because or at Saskatoon, at Sutherland. Let's be correct here, because I don't know if who's out there, and with us being somewhat limited, and I mean we have to be honest here, like we are a little bit limited in terms of the Pinty series coverage. Like you're going to have TSN Plus, you're going to have Tim says she would know who to talk to for Western Images. You're talking, I assume, about Loretta, right? Yeah, I should have to reach out to Loretta and see if she's got somebody, because that would be a good person to ask. Great point there, Tim. Because that's really what it is. Like if we can get somebody from each province, then for somebody like myself who loves photos, who loves, and I'm not using these for myself. Like I'm not making money off of these. I just want them to be seen because they're friggin' amazing photos, first off. But they're also doing a great thing, is they're showcasing people that maybe not everybody knows. Oh, Olivia, yes, exactly. So, again, this is one of those things. Like we have people that we can go out to and get resources, get photos. Perfect example was Tim today asking if there was anybody else that I needed. I couldn't remember actually off the top of my head, but one of the things that we want to be able to do is, even if somebody is 50th in points, 51st in points, it doesn't matter. They still ran a race. They deserve to have their name up on the list here. It's not always the easiest thing to do, because not all the time there is photos, but guys like Tim don't say, oh, this is a guy who's last place. No. He just sees a race car driver that he wants to take a photo of. That's the difference, right? And whereas sometimes when fans take photos, like myself, you kind of stick to the same people you know. There's a lot of people that I think we're going to have to get used to seeing new faces, because this is the way that things are going right now. Sure, we have our regulars, but I think that the series is getting to a point where we had an announcement that came out today, and it came out, or it was actually yesterday, I believe it was. Brandon Watson is going to be back. Now, this is not unheard of. Like, this was something expected, that Brandon Watson would be back. The capacity, though, is very interesting. And I'm very excited about this, because Brandon Watson, I think everybody saw him last year. They saw what Brandon Watson could do. He won poles. He was fast right off the start at Sunset Speedway. At Chaudier, very fast. Had some trouble on the road courses. Let's be honest. Brandon Watson is a short track racer. He is not a road course racer. But he improved by iCar. So that, he got a little bit better. And then at CTMP, I think it was much better. Toronto was a bit of a struggle for him. But when you're not racing on those type of circuits on a regular basis, obviously it's going to be a lot harder for you. But I think that team, I think that Brandon Watson is going to be somebody you have to watch this year, because if you've watched the APC series, you know that Brandon Watson is a force. He is somebody that you need to watch. He's the winningest driver in the APC series. You don't get that when you're not successful. You win races on a regular basis, and then you move up to the Pinty series and you're not winning races. It is a hard pill to swallow. Now, he did get the win in the final race, but let's be honest, Donald Teach could have moved him. He could have, and he was there. We were at the Delaware race. Teach had every opportunity to punt him if he wanted to, but Donald raced him clean and just couldn't get to the inside in time. I just want to get to some of these Regency Media, everyone's is just as important. It's very true. The first time I went and made a video, I had to research who I was filming, and I had no clue who was important or not. They all got equal treatment. That's the way it needs to be. And I think we know this, Regency Media, Ryan. I mean, I think we know this because we see it in other forms of motorsports. You see it not just in Formula One. You see it all the time in big-time NASCAR. You see it in IndyCar, but you also see it in other sports as well. They focus on the big-name stars. That's typically what you do. Talk about Washington Capitals, perfect example. I mean, hockey is a little bit different here, but you want to focus on Ovechkin. You want to see what Ovechkin does, right? Now, I might be way out of tune here because it's been a while since I've actually paid attention to hockey. For good reason. It's tough to be a Toronto fan here, but you pay attention to the big names, big stars. But one of the things that I think fans have been very much vocal about is I want to see the Corey LaJoys. I want to see the Ty Dillons. I want to see the Cody Wares. Focus time on them as well. And one of the things they have been really good on our broadcast of is mentioning those names, mentioning Larry Jackson, mentioning Matthew Scannell, mentioning Chantel Kalika, mentioning Trevor Monahan, Dexter Stacey, Wallace Stacey, Glenn Stiers, maybe guys that aren't running up in the front but are middle to the back of the pack. They all deserve that because you know what? They all have their own partners. They all have people in their own family. They all have their own teams that all deserve that attention. The problem is you have a really, really tough amount of time. You have an hour on the broadcast side of things, and then you have your live stream, which not everybody has access to. So it is, the more content we can pump out, the better it is for everybody. Jim, what I thought in Canada following hockey was law. I'm allowed to follow hockey, and I would if we could make it past the first round of the playoffs. That would be great. I have not seen a successful second round in my lifetime, so it gets really hard. I've seen the Raptors win the championship in the NBA. That was one of the best experiences of my life. The Jays, I haven't seen them. I saw their big run a couple of years ago when they made it. What was it? I think like into the the American League Final where they lost. But the Leafs, nothing. Nothing. So, yeah, that's kind of the reason. But, yeah, so again, we're going to talk about this because I think one of the big names that we wanted to look at is Brandon Watson. Now, there were some interesting things that were mentioned about his... Well, that was mentioned in his announcement. Now, let's look at what this announcement says. Now, it's very, very interesting because we haven't received official word what's happening with other teams. Now, I have heard several things. It is not my place to say what is fact or fiction. As I have learned more recently, there's a lot of people that tell you stuff that is not true. And it's better not to say anything and just say, I don't know. So I don't know what the situation is right now with some of the other drivers that this announcement would potentially reflect. So Brandon Watson set to chase the NASCAR Pinty Series Championship in 2023. He made the move from regional and weekly short track competition to the cross-country NASCAR Pinty Series in 2022. And the results were quick to follow. In just his first full season traveling the country, Watson tallied a victory in the season finale at Delaware Speedway. He was really good there, with a total of 4 top 5s, which he could have done. He could have had more. I think it was just some bad luck. 9 top 10s and 3 pole awards. Not too shabby at all. 6th place in the point standings. They did not mention, I don't think, there. Oh, there he goes later on in there. But this is the interesting point. Okay, so it's pretty impossible to feel anything but pride for the numbers we put up last season, says Watson. Seeing a lot of places for the first time was a big curveball for us, but that's exactly the sort of thing we're most excited for when we committed to run the full schedule. This season, Watson will enter his second tour across the nation with a bevy of experience in his hip pocket and a crew chief, Reno Montanari, capable of propelling him towards a national championship. Now, if you're familiar with the NASCAR Pinty series, you would know that last name. You would know that first name. There's a couple of guys that you've got to know within the NASCAR Pinty series. And this is one of those guys. So if we take a look here, I'm just going to check and see. Mark Dilley. Okay. 1993 NASCAR champion, has been in this series forever. Since its inception, but he's also part of NASCAR before. Now, if you look, Reno Montanari was listed as his championship, as his crew chief last year. He's been with Mark Dilley forever. Also, what's noted, Leland Industries as the partner. Now, I'm not sure exactly who was listed as the crew chief last year for Brandon Watson. We'll see right now who was listed. Tim Watson was listed as the crew chief. So to get Reno Montanari, who's got tons of experience, but then all of a sudden they do mention as well, if we go back to the statement here. So Reno Montanari, being on the road with a full notebook and a chance to work with Reno for a whole year is something I'm really excited for, says the Stayner, Ontario native. This is a really good program that I had more confidence in every time we unloaded at a speedway last season. We have a package that can contend for wins all summer, continues Watson. I think we showed how good our short track stuff is at Delaware last September. And I'm looking forward to showing how strong our road course cars are this year. After finishing 6th in the 2022 standings, Watson will undoubtedly be laser focused on contending for a first career national championship. He mentions a little bit stuff about that. And this is the key note. Brandon Watson's 2023 NASCAR Pinty Series campaign is powered by Leland Industries, Renomato Group of Companies, Sheer Metal Products, and GMS. Now, that's one of the interesting things as part of this announcement is that GMS and Sheer Metal Products both listed as coming back to the number 9 car this year, as well as Renomato Group. Now, in terms of what's happening with TJ and RGC Sports, I have not heard anything regarding this. The stuff that I have heard, of course, is just hearsay. Anything from RGC Sports directly, there has not been an announcement as far as I know that's actually been made. Similarly to Mark Dilley, there has not been a formal announcement as to what his plans are for this season. Obviously, based off of this announcement, it would look with Leland going towards Brandon Watson and joining him, with Reno Montanari also joining him. This would appear that there is some sort of partnership continuing. What is not mentioned here? Okay, so we know last year that White Motorsports was operating. They had 5 cars. They had the 0 car of Glenn Stires, the 27 of Andrew Ranger, the 64 of Mark Dilley, the 2 of TJ Renomato, and of course I'm forgetting one of them. Typically that's what would happen, right? Somebody will scroll across the screen and we'll figure it. Oh, and of course Brandon Watson. So what's going to be the case for this year? Well, they didn't mention that. This press release is great, but it does not mention what team he is racing for. So, again, there are things that have been passed on that, again, have not received any confirmation of, so I cannot speak further to it, but you would think that there is still some sort of a partnership here with, obviously, Mark Dilley, obviously with RGC Sports, if there is some sort of connection with RGC still, considering they're still listed as a partner. Now, one of the things that we thought about was when Brandon Watson stepped into that 64 in 2021 that he could be a natural successor to Mark Dilley based on how successful of a driver he is, how marketable of a talent he is. And that's the thing. He is very marketable as a talent. A very, 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 very successful driver. Still relatively young, still middle age, I guess you'd say. I say that middle in terms of like being 30 or so. I think he's 29. I could be wrong. But Brandon Watson's talent is going to keep him in this series. The biggest question mark for everybody that comes into racing in general and as a whole is funding. Now, that could have been something that we've seen for anybody. You talk about anybody in this series, and it's always coming down to funding. Now, what's very interesting is I remember a time where Brandon Watson's cars in the APC series were blank. They didn't have any sponsorship on them. So the fact that he now has an opportunity where it doesn't appear, and again, I don't know the inner workings of this team and who they are with. However, when we talk about the inner workings, it does not mention anything here about other partners that could maybe give us a clue as to which team they're working with. Didn't mention anything about White Motorsports in this. Whether they're working still with White in an offshoot team, like similar to what we saw RGC Sports do last year with Gary Kloot, whereas even though he was an RGC Sports driver, he wasn't really with White Motorsports. He was with another team. So Legendary Motor Car with cars, I believe, supplied from DJK. Inner workings of this series are fascinating, and I think they're absolutely something that would be fun to follow in and see kind of all the inner workings as to who actually is working with who and where does this car come from and where does this car come from. But it's a big, big deal. Now, there's another team that had a crew, I believe it was a crew member, made a post. And I hadn't really heard about this. There was a driver that I've been in communication with over the past couple months just to see if he was going to come back. Same with last year. COVID seemed to really hurt their program. But it was announced, not announced per se, it was posted on social media. And it was about an inspection ahead of the NASCAR Pinty Series upcoming season. First race, Canadian Motorsport Park, May 21st. Well, we know the first race of the season for the series is actually May 13th. So, all of a sudden now, is this talking about their schedule for this season? So I haven't seen an official announcement yet, but when you've got pictures like this, and they're inspecting the car, tends to make me think that Jocelyn Fecteau is going to return to the series in some capacity. Now, the 77 car we haven't seen in a couple of seasons. Was not there last year. Was not there in 2020. And 2021 even. I don't think they raced. Actually, maybe they did do couple races in 2021. It's been a while. Either way. So if they're getting the NASCAR inspection done, I would think that there's some sort of intention. I did also have a driver reach out and say that they are going to be attempting a couple races this year. Let them announce that. Driver that we haven't seen in the series in many, many years. So, and I hope that happens to be the case for a lot of the stuff that we are hoping to see this year. Obviously, there's a lot of money that needs to be involved with this series. I mean, and this is a racing problem. It's not a Pinty's problem. This is a racing problem. Shit's expensive. That's the reality. And it's expensive across the board for everything. You go and you try and buy groceries nowadays, it is extremely expensive. So one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is seeing if there's going to be additional names. Businesses are still a tough thing. I mean, we've spoken to many racers, and one of the common themes is how hard it's been to get funding. But there's a lot of promise here. A lot of it, actually, because at this potential rate, I'm thinking we still could have around 18 to 20 cars for Sunset. Obviously, that's unofficial. A lot of it's up in the air because, again, we have names that you'd think of sure they'll be back. Names that we haven't even heard of that could show up. This is the thing. Not a lot of announcements have been made yet. There's been some, but not a ton. So we're going to take a look at what we've got for the 2023 roster. Put this together this afternoon. Now, this is going to be interesting. Obviously, there's some names on these lists that we don't know 100%. There's a couple names out here that I'm curious if they would want to come to the NASCAR Pinty Series, return to the NASCAR Pinty Series. But here's what we're looking at right now. Glenn Stires, we already know, is back. WMI has already kind of announced that they're going to have 2 cars, Andrew Ranger, Glenn Stires. So that's confirmed. JP Bergeron, they already put out a presser. He's back for the full season. Alex Gannett, that's an older presser. He's signed for 2 seasons with EHR. We know he's back. Trevor Monahan announced that he's going to be back running select races this year. Positives for him as well. We add in Wayne Hanlon Jr. He put out a announcement on his social media. He's going to run Eastbound Park. Thomas Nouveau going to run full season except for Eastbound Park due to a conflict. He'll be running for Dave Jacobs Racing in a second car full time, except for Eastbound. Andrew Ranger, already know. Ryan Dyson, Delaware Speedway finale. He's going to run for sure. Daniel Boss select races. In a interview that he made time for, at least with me at Motorama, did confirm they're going to try and do all the road course races. That is including GP3R and ICAR. And then potentially Delaware. Not 100% if they're going to do Delaware, but they're also going to try and do Sunset as well. So an oval track race. Awesome to see that. Dave Bailey. Randy Slack confirmed on social media that Dave Bailey will be back. I'm just going to sneeze. Just give me a quick second. So Dave Bailey back. Michael Gowdy, Clinton Jeffrey confirmed Michael Gowdy and Ken Schrader will be back for Oshweekend Speedway. Chantel Kalika has already confirmed that she'll be back for the Western races. LP Dumoulin confirmed on his YouTube channel, actually. Make sure you follow them, WeatherTech Canada Racing. That he'll be back battling for the championship in 2023. Kevin Lacroix confirmed on the NASCAR Pinty Series community page that he is back for the full season. Larry Jackson confirmed as well back, as well as select races for Matthew Scannell. Those are ones that have been confirmed. Okay? Now, we have ones that there's not an official announcement at, but they're pretty likely. So JF Dumoulin, he typically runs GP3R. I can't see that he would stop that, especially after how close he was last year. So JF Dumoulin, definitely would think he's out there. The Klutes, they normally run every season, even if it's not a full-time option for Gary Klute, which I don't have any insight as to what his plans are for this year. I really hope he's back full-time, but he does have a young child at home now, so it could potentially be put off, which is absolutely fine. You're totally, this is family comes first. And, so if Gary just ends up doing the CTMP races in Toronto again, be completely fine, just as long as we get to see Gary, the smiling assassin out there, Ryan Klute and Peter Klute. Likely, unless things are going to go crazy and haywire, they normally run a couple of races a year. Trayton Lapsevich and Alex Tagliani, 22 Racing. There hasn't been an announcement fully on either one of those. But one of the interesting notes is Tag has already been teasing his 2023 plans. So in likelihood that it's all but confirmed for Tagliani. He was at Motorama, and there wouldn't be in a sense of having him there if he wasn't going to be part of the season. DJ Kennington, I don't know if he puts out a presser, but he's normally a conclusion because we've already got Ryan Dyson's confirmed to race for him at Delaware, so put the two and two together. Normally runs that rental 28 car in multiple races. Eastbound Park, at Sutherland and Edmonton last year, or maybe just Sutherland last year, not Edmonton, but The 28 car does typically run at least on the ovals. I don't know if it ran actually on any of the road courses last year. I'm trying to think. I don't believe it did. So Simon Deonvien teasing his 2023 plans, so definitely think that he's going to be back. Brent Weller normally runs a couple races at CTMP in Toronto. Wallace Stacy's pretty much, he and Dexter Stacy have both been pretty much tied back to EHR, but no official announcement there. Donald Teague as well. Curious what his plans are for this year. I've heard that there was some work on getting a road course car, and if there was, what's the plan for that? Because he was only doing ovals before. And obviously the champ, Marc-Antoine Cameron, no official announcement that he's back yet. I cannot see that that he's not coming back. You're a champion in a pretty good one, a pretty dominant fashion, and he's already been out promoting the car out for GP3R, so I can't see that he wouldn't be back. Now we get the unknown status. Now some of these, again, some people have said, oh yeah, this person's done, or oh yeah, this is. Things change, and they change a lot. And for myself, I'm still learning how somebody can tell you something one week, and then it completely changes the following week. Which makes somebody like myself that's doing stuff like this go a little bit crazy, but I love it. I love seeing that people aren't giving up, and they're pushing as much as they can to get back out on the racetrack. So there's a lot of drivers here. This is the majority of the other names as part of the series from last year. TJ Renamoto, Ray Jr. Quartermash, Rafael Lessard. I only believe Rafael is not back because he's already been announced as ACT. However, Matthew Kingsbury also is announced as ACT. So hard to say. I mean, I don't think they interfere. So I'd love to see both of them back, but I have not heard anything about Rafael Lessard coming back. LP Montour, I think somebody who should be back is LP Montour. For Dumoulin competition, had some great runs last year. I think he definitely has potential. I'd like to see him do full season, do some oval races. That'd be kind of fun to see. Dumoulin competition with two cars on ovals and on road courses. That'd be fun. Jason White, there was some talk that Jason White potentially be back with Larry Jackson in Toronto. I know they were talking about that on Race Rivals Race Chat a couple of weeks ago. So that's an option. I'd like to see Jason back. I love that guy. Alex Labay, that's a big question mark. We don't know really what his status is with DGM. We know the funding is not there compared to what it was in the past. He has done a couple of races for RSS Racing, but if I'm the NASCAR Pinty Series, if I'm a race team like Dave Jacobs Racing, if I have a sponsor lined up, I would get Alex Labay full season. I love seeing him in the Xfinity Series, but I think for Alex's confidence, coming back and running well in this series, battling for wins, could really help him. I think the experiment at DGM it's definitely lasted a long time, but I feel like we're regressing here and we're not progressing at DGM. And it's sad to see it. He is way more talented than people seem to give him credit for. And I'd love to see him just come back and run some ovals as well. He ran at Delaware, and I want to see more Mustangs out there. So yeah, three Mustangs for Dave Jacobs would be pretty cool. I wrote the 56 for Jim Bray because I know he has that second car. Typically they had the 98, and then in 2021 Malcolm Strawn ran the 56. So maybe there's an option to have the 56 back when I'm seeing it at Eastbound Park, but I'm curious if that's even an option. Mark Dilley, again, don't really know what's going to happen with Mark, but I hope to see the 64 back. It's one of my favorite numbers on the grid. The next question mark is really David Thorndike, and Dave has run in this series for so many years, typically runs CTMP and their own equipment, Promotive Racing. They had, at the end of 2021, they had got a new chassis that they were hoping to run in 2022. Unfortunately, Dave got sick, so he wasn't able to race in the first event at CTMP, and then the car, I believe, was not ready for the second CTMP race, so they just backed out last year. Hopefully he'll be back in some capacity this year. Just to see that 67 back out on the track would be great. CTMP, typically we have a bigger crowd of cars, and they were a big omission from last year. So again, when we look at terms of the road course side of things, those names of Jocelyn Fecteau and David Thorndike were not on those entries last year. So now all of a sudden you add 2 new entries, potentially we could have a bigger field if, again, the car counts are similar to last year. Brian Cathcart, 71. We're going to talk about Jocelyn Fecteau and Sam Fellows. Now, some of these other names on here were select racers. They only raced once throughout the season for special events. So Justin Arsenault, I can't see him missing iCar. That's their bread and butter, and he was a lot of fun to watch. I kind of do hope to see Justin run a couple more races because I thought he was absolutely fun to watch. Same with Ray Morneau Jr. Didn't have a lot of good luck. They had a mechanical issue. Did talk with Ray at Motorama, and they said that there's a hope that he hopes to be able to do Delaware again. Hopefully, we get to see the John Arts Group 03 back out there. Jacques Villeneuve, I can't see him coming back to do more than just other than GP3R because he didn't get an opportunity to really race it. He's still very busy racing all different types of motorsports. So definitely like to see him back again in some capacity. Dominic Saint-Cyr. Dominic Saint-Cyr is somebody else who didn't get a lot of time behind the wheel at GP3R, unfortunately, into the wall early, and not sure what the plans are there, if he's planning on doing a couple more races, but, be interesting to see. Jake Sheridan, if there's somebody that I want to see behind the wheel of the cars of the NASCAR Pinty Series this year, it is Jake Sheridan. Without a doubt, one of my favorite drivers to watch last year when he made his 2 starts. Amazing run, podium finish at Ohsweken Speedway in the 64 for Mark Daly. Didn't have the best finish at Delaware, but was easily part of the conversation, was running up front, not giving an inch to Andrew Ranger, not giving an inch to Marc-Antoine Cameron. Unfortunately, in the end, Cameron did get into the back of the 3 car, and he spun. But was one of the most impressive debuts, similar to what we saw with Shea Gemmell in the NASCAR Pinty Series in 2020 and 2021. Shea Gemmell definitely did the same, so I definitely would like to see that. Brett Taylor, I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I hope Brett comes back. I'm sure he'd try and do a race or 2. I don't know. I don't think, Tim, I think if we ask Jake that, he ain't going to say that it was a nudge. But yeah, I get what you're saying there. Stuart Friesen, I can't see that he wouldn't be back to try and actually win this year. He was close. Triton got him on the very last lap, so I'm sure he definitely would want to be back with Mr. Transmission. And I think the field wants to see, we want to see Stuart Friesen back. Obviously, Christopher Bell and a Cup driver like Kyle Larson would be awesome as well. But I think Stuart Friesen is definitely somebody who would come back and run again. Sarah Thorne, I would expect that if the budgeting is there, that she would be back for Eastbound Park. Matt Shirley out west, we did have him on the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. He did say that that is a hope. They want to be back, but they don't currently have anything to announce. So hopefully he'll keep working on it. Jamie Krizik normally is always out there, out west. We can always rely on him. Ohsweken, let's think Larson and Bell. I think actually, Tim, those are the 2 that we would get. If there's going to be like an additional name, I'm hoping to see somebody like a Justin Poirier or a Matt Williamson, somebody else from Canadian Dirt Racing. That would be great. I don't know if I said Justin or Dustin, but Jordan Poirier, I think I call him Justin. Whatever his name is. Definitely get him in there. Matt Williamson as well is showing that he can do it on dirt. So just in terms of getting different names, right? I think that's the one thing. I mean, we could probably run out of cars for Osh Weekend Speedway, but I think in terms of big ticket names, Larson is the biggest. If we're talking maybe a little bit lower than that, Chase Briscoe would be somebody I'd love to see come out. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Larson's schedule is that is the issue, Tim. And I don't know, maybe HMS might not want guys coming out and racing with some of the problems that have happened with Chase breaking his leg out and snowboarding and stuff. I don't know if they'll be a little bit, because again, depending on when the race is in August, so it's a little bit later in the season, so it's closer to those playoff times. So I don't think teams will be as interested in having their guys compete so close to the championships, or the playoffs as they call them. Travis Pastrana would be a good one, Wes. He would do it. Absolutely, he would do it. I'm happy that we've got lots of opportunities here. Serge Bordeaux. Serge did do a couple races last year at a crash with Glenn Stiers. What do we see? Brandon McFarlane in the 56. I definitely got to see him back. They had some tough luck in the actual race there. Aaron Turkey in the 99. Definitely. Now, this is the interesting. Who do you want to see? I've put some names out here of people that, obviously that I've got people that I would love to see in the series. People that return to the series, people that run in the APC series right now. Of course, everything is about funding. But with all those names that we've already talked about, Valerie Limoges, she is the Nissan Cup Championship winner from last year. She's obviously really good on the road courses. Now, obviously, she's running a Nissan, so I don't know whether she'd be able to come in, whether they'd have some sort of an issue with that. But the series needs women. And Chantal Kalik cannot be the only one that's on the schedule. So I think Valerie would be a very good competitor to have. She's very, 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 very good. Morad, that's a great choice, actually, Tim. Oh, yeah. That's a good choice. I always forget about Daniel Morad. I don't know why, but Kyle Marcelli, definitely. I have him, I believe, on this list. Rick Spencer Walt, Dalton Kellett. Now, Dalton Kellett's an interesting one. The reason why I say Dalton Kellett is because he's not running IndyCar. He is back home, so he's working out of their Toronto company. I also think he's friends with Gary Clute. The K-Line business, I believe, was on their 42 car for a long time with Peter. It was on 59 of Gary for a while. K-Line, come on. Dalton Kellett could easily do it. I don't know if he would, but that's the interesting thing. Lane Zardo, Garrett Tiemersma, for sure. Definitely on there. Josh Stoddy, Danny Benedict. Even just running Sunset Speedway would be awesome. I'm putting J.R. Fitzpatrick on this list because, let's be honest, J.R. Fitzpatrick definitely is somebody who could run back. Austin Riley, yes. Yes, Rick Verburn. Yes, Austin Riley at CTMP in Toronto. Austin Riley, if you don't know, Austin Riley is one of the best stories in motorsports, bar none. I love following their content. Now, he's killing it in the Radical division, but if we could get Spark Power, his sponsor, if we could get Haggerty Insurance, I would love to see Austin Riley come in a DJK car. You don't get to see a lot of autistic drivers that come into racing and win championships. And Austin Riley his family is invested in him. The series is invested in him. He has done such amazing things. And we got to see him actually race a couple times at CTMP, and he is fast. Kid knows his stuff, and I think CTMP would be an awesome thing if we could get Austin Riley. I know he's running down south now, so I'm not sure how often he's going to be up, but I've also thrown in names from the Ontario Sportsman Series. They run cars very similar. They're old CAS car, old NASCAR Pinty's cars. So I put in Michael Herniak Jr., Brad Robinson, two of our younger drivers that have potential. A little bit different running Pinty's races, but names like places at Sunset, Delaware, those are places where you can throw it out there. Obviously, Kyle Steckley, we've talked about. Connor Pritico would be an awesome one, I think, at Delaware Speedway. He's also shown very quickly that he can get the hang of things. So at the end of the day, I mean, the names are there. It doesn't mean that they are going to come to this series, but I mean, Samantha Tan is another one. I think she's way too busy with her endurance racing, but she is an amazing road course racer and could do very, very well at CTMP. Same with Jonathan Woolridge. Jonathan Woolridge is somebody who's been very successful on road courses in the Radical Cup, now getting opportunity to run IMSA and sports cars. He's somebody else. I think we've seen sports car racers. What about Mark Wilkins? Veteran Mark Wilkins. He's somebody else I think that we, maybe doesn't get the love and attention that he deserves. Garrett Grist also goes out there. He races in sports cars. Take back former IndyCar drivers like James Hinchcliffe, Robbie Wickens. Those are obviously on my lists of guys I want to see in Toronto. I would love to see, I know this might be crazy, Tim, but give me an IndyCar driver that is like Tony Kanaan, Elio Castroneves. They're in town for the IndyCar race. I know it might be a bit of a downgrade for them, but I mean, in terms of like grand scale of IndyCar to Pinty series, but Schrader is coming back. Clinton has already confirmed that he was. Kenny Wallace, you get Kenny Wallace and you've got entertainment. I'd be curious to see how Kenny does. It's been a while since he's been in like this series. He did run an OSS race with Norm Benning and Ken Schrader at Full Throttle, and I couldn't tell you what year it was, maybe 2018. So they both have come up here and raced. So those options are definitely there. Tim, that's a great option. Marco Andretti. I like that. I've always thought like if Rick Peterson is not involved in the Schmidt-Peterson McLaren thing, whatever it's called now, I would love to see if Rick Peterson could do it and have a Rick Peterson racing team and have Robbie Wickens and James Hinchcliffe in the NASCAR Pinty Series. The biggest problem, I know I talked actually to, funny enough, I talked to James Hinchcliffe on LinkedIn, and he said he would absolutely do it if he had the funding. And I was like, well, he just signed with Canadian Tire for a promotional thing and promotional deal, and he's got a big deal with CSN Collision Centers, so put CSN Collision Centers in, Hinchcliffe number 5, and let's go racing. So there's options there, right? There's lots of names, and that's the biggest thing. Is there's no shortage of talent. I obviously would love to see more of those Canadian names come in, but in terms of American star power, you can't turn away a Tony Stewart. I mean, I've wanted to see a team do what we've seen in the past with like Go Fast Racing or Rick Ware Racing, but on a bigger scale, like a Venturini Motorsports or Stewart Haas Racing. Kyle Busch Motorsports, I was tossing that out on Twitter this past week. If you get Kyle Busch invested, he's now with Chevrolet, so there's no conflict here. We don't have Toyota in the series right now, so we have Chevrolets though. Kyle Busch Motorsports did run Gary Clute. Now, I love the idea of having Kyle Busch Motorsports Canada with like KBM Canada, and you have Gary Clute and another driver. Hell, make it James Hinchcliffe, Dalton Kellett, whoever it be. And then all of a sudden, Gary Clute Podcast gets a little bit of a guest like Kyle Busch. So the options are there. I mean, we're talking about this week in and week out, and the names you could bring is always exciting. we want to continue to bring fans to the party each and every week. We want to continue to talk the NASCAR Pinty Series, talk about Canadian racing here on GeForce TV. If you haven't already, look at the banner up at the very top here. You can subscribe for free to GeForce TV to enjoy racing content all season long, including weekly racing at Oshweekend Speedway and the APC Series. Of course, weekly racing coverage on GeForce Lite. We sometimes see racing at Humberstone, Merrittville, not to mention Race Rivals Race Chat every Tuesday and the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour Mondays at 7. Race Rivals Race Chat, of course, with Adam and Clinton at 8 o'clock on Tuesday nights. Well, we've had a great conversation in our brand new looking layout. My hope is eventually we will have some guests on the show. It is obviously a work in progress, doing all the tech stuff myself. But I do want to send out a very, very, very big happy birthday to Spencer from GeForce TV. He is the guy that puts everything together on the back end for most GeForce products. When you're looking at the broadcasts, he's behind doing all that work. When you Race Rivals Race Chat, he's producing that stuff as well, making sure the show goes well. Spencer, happy birthday. Thank you so much for all you do for GeForce TV. We would not be the same without you. Definitely. Thank you guys for coming in. If you haven't already, follow Jim's lead and make sure you press the thumbs up for the like button. Share. We need more and more people to come in and tune in, not tune out. Well, you could come in and tune out just as long as you're watching. Every week here on the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour. We are ecstatic because we are so close to the start of the season. We'll be back next week with you all. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in, for chatting with me. It is always such a blast. We're going to have a great season this year. And the names that we see underneath me here, these are the names of the guys and gals who are going to get all that great attention that they deserve for putting cars on the racetrack for our entertainment. Definitely. So we'll catch you all, guys, next week. Thank you all very much. Tim, Terry, Wes, Jim, Al, Gary Calling. Always great to see you guys. Regency Media, my good buddy Rigser Mason, Eduardo. Thank you guys all for tuning in this week. We'll catch